I stood in the center of the glittering ballroom holding a velvet ring box, completely unaware that the stage had already been set for my execution. My feet burned from 20 hours of travel. My suit was wrinkled. I had rushed straight from the airport to the Grand Regency Hotel, desperate to surprise Chloe for her 25th birthday. 6 long months in Asia expanding Vance Media, living off cheap hotel coffee and sleepless nights, was all going to be worth it tonight. I squeezed the red velvet box in my jacket pocket. Inside sat a diamond ring that cost nearly every cent of my savings. Julian? I turned around and saw my co-founder and best friend Ethan Hayes, standing near the champagne tower. He wore an expensive tailored tux that looked brand new. Ethan. I grinned, stepping forward to hug him. I made it back 3 days early, man. I couldn't miss Chloe's big night. Ethan didn't hug me back. He stepped back, a strange smile touching his lips. You really shouldn't be here, Julian. What do you mean? I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. I wanted to surprise her. Before Ethan could answer, the crystal chandeliers dimmed. Spotlights flashed across the ballroom, centering on the main stage. Chloe Sterling stepped up to the microphone. She looked breathtaking in a floor-length crimson dress, her blonde hair styled in soft waves. Good evening, everyone. Chloe's voice echoed through the high-end speakers. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my 25th birthday tonight. The crowd applauded warmly. I felt a surge of pride in my chest. I took a step toward the stage, taking the ring box out of my pocket. I wanted to be right there at the stairs when she stepped down. Before we cut the cake, Chloe continued, her voice sharp and ringing with artificial cheer, I have a special announcement. A bit of house cleaning, if you will. She scanned the room until her bright blue eyes locked directly onto mine. The room grew quiet. Julian Vance, she said into the microphone. Her tone was cold as ice. I know you just walked into this room. Step into the spotlight, please. A bright white beam of light shifted from the stage and hit me directly. People turned to stare. Whispers broke out around me. I blinked into the blinding light, my heart pounding against my ribs. Chloe? What's going on? I called out, raising a hand to block the glare. Don't Chloe me, she scoffed through the speakers. I wanted to make sure I said this in front of everyone who matters. We are done, Julian. The room gasped. My heart stopped. What? I managed to say, my voice cracking slightly. Chloe, is this a joke? Do I look like I'm joking? Chloe laughed bitterly. I am tired of waiting around for a broke failure who pretends to be a tech founder. You've been dragging me down for 5 years. You have no future, Julian. You're nothing. Broke? I took a desperate step forward. Chloe, I spent the last 6 months in Asia building our supply chain. Vance Media is about to blow up. I did all of it for us. You didn't do anything for us, Ethan's voice cut through the air. I turned my head. Ethan was walking up the steps onto the stage, taking a second microphone from a staff member. He stood right beside Chloe, adjusting his silk tie. What are you doing up there, Ethan? I asked, my head spinning. Tell her. Tell her about the contracts I signed in Tokyo. Ethan chuckled softly into the mic. Julian, you really are naive. While you were away playing executive across the ocean, the board held an emergency meeting. You missed key operations. You failed your fiduciary duties. That's a lie. You told me to stay in Tokyo to close the deal. I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. I have the paperwork right here, Ethan said, pulling a folded document from his jacket. As of midnight yesterday, Vance Media officially bought out your entire equity stake for non-performance. You hold 0 shares. You aren't the CEO anymore, Julian. You don't even work there. You stole my company? The words felt heavy, impossible to form. I built the core code, Ethan. I hired you. And you left the doors unlocked, Ethan replied smoothly. Vance Media is mine now. Fully. He's the real visionary, Chloe chimed in, leaning her head against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan actually knows how to run a business. He knows how to take care of a woman. Unlike you, Julian. You're just a loser with a cheap suit. Laughter bubbled up through the crowd of wealthy investors and influencers. Snickers and pointed fingers surrounded me. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, exposed under the glaring white light. Ethan slid his arm around Chloe's waist. She looked up at him, smiling bright and eager, and leaned in. In front of 300 people, Ethan pulled Chloe into a deep, lingering kiss. The crowd erupted into applause and cheers. To the new power couple, someone shouted from the back. My hands shook so violently that the velvet box slipped from my fingers. It hit the polished hardwood floor with a soft thud, popping open to reveal the diamond ring inside. Chloe broke the kiss, glanced down at the ring on the floor and smirked. "Keep it, Julian. You're going to need the cash for rent." More laughter echoed through the hall. I looked at Ethan. My best friend of 10 years looked back at me with zero regret, only smug victory. I looked at Chloe, the woman I had loved for half a decade, looking at me with pure disgust. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick as concrete. Without saying another word, I turned around and walked out into the cold, pouring rain. I stared at the signed corporate filing in my hands, unable to process how 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears had been wiped out by a single stolen signature. The paper felt heavy, slick with rain from my walk to my older brother Marcus's small apartment. I slumped on his worn sofa, my clothes still dripping onto the rug. Marcus slammed 2 mugs of dark coffee down on the glass table. "Drink that," he said, taking a seat opposite me. "Now tell me again slowly, Julian. How did Ethan pull this off?" "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling. "I tried signing into the main company server 10 minutes ago. My credentials don't work. My corporate email is completely wiped. My master administrator access, just gone." "Did you check the patent office portal?" Marcus asked, leaning forward with a furrowed brow. "You held 70% of the software patents for Vance Media in your own name." I pulled the public records on my phone while I was sitting in the lobby upstairs. I whispered, holding up the printed document. "Look at Section 4, Marcus. Look at the signature line." Marcus snatched the paper from my hands. He scanned the lines quickly, his jaw tightening as he read. "This isn't your signature. It's a forged signature." "He used my 6 months in Asia," I said, pressing my palms against my face. "Ethan told the board I was unresponsive. He faked an emergency shareholder meeting, cited non-performance, and used a fake signature on an equity transfer agreement. He bought my entire stake for $1,000. $1,000? Marcus barked, slamming his fist onto the coffee table. "The company is worth $20 million. That is straight-up fraud, Julian." "Try proving it right now," I said bitterly. "I don't have money for a corporate lawyer. My personal account was linked to our payroll system and Ethan froze that too. I have $82 left in my checking account." "Call him," Marcus said, his eyes burning with anger. "Put him on speaker right now. Let me hear what that snake has to say." My hands shook as I pulled up Ethan's number. I dialed. It rang 4 times before the line picked up. Background music and loud laughter filtered through the speaker. He was still at Chloe's party. "Julian," Ethan's smooth voice rang out. "I thought you'd be on a plane back to Tokyo by now." "You forged my signature, Ethan," I said, straining to keep my voice steady. "I have the equity transfer paper right in front of me. You faked the board minutes." "Oh, come on, Julian," Ethan sighed, sounding utterly bored. "Don't be so dramatic. You were always too weak for the big leagues. You wanted to build code, I wanted to build an empire. The board made a choice. You lied to the board." I yelled, standing up from the couch. "I gave you half of my dream. I trusted you when you had nothing." "And that was your first mistake," Ethan chuckled coldly. "Trust is for amateurs in tech. Nice guys finish last, Julian. You should have learned that 5 years ago. You spent 6 months writing code while I was building relationships with real investors." "I wrote that code," I shouted. "The entire architecture of Vance Media is mine." "Not anymore," Ethan said softly. "Check the database again tomorrow. My name is listed as the primary inventor on every single patent filed this week. You left the country and you left yourself wide open. You won't get away with this," I warned him, my teeth clenched. "I will take you to court. I will burn everything down." "With what money?" Ethan taunted. "You're broke, Julian. You don't have the cash to hire a paralegal, let alone a corporate litigation firm that costs $1,000 an hour. If you step anywhere near the office or contact Chloe again, I'll have security arrest you for trespassing and harassment." "Ethan, listen to me. Goodbye, Julian. Enjoy the scraps." The line went dead. The silence in the small apartment was suffocating. I dropped the phone onto the cushion next to me and stared blankly at the wall. "Julian?" Marcus asked quietly, his anger softening into concern. "What are we going to do?" "He took everything," I whispered. My throat felt tight, raw with a mix of fury and despair. "My company. My life's work. My girlfriend. He stripped me down to nothing in a single night." "You still have your brain," Marcus insisted, reaching out to grab my shoulder tightly. "You built Vance Media from scratch in a garage. You can build something else." "With $82? I let out a dry, broken laugh. The tech world moves fast, Marcus. By next month, Ethan will lock down the Series B funding using my platform. Everyone in the city thinks I'm a joke now. Chloe made sure of that. So you're just going to sit here and let them win? Marcus asked, staring into my eyes. You're just going to let Ethan walk away with your fortune while Chloe lives in luxury on your hard work? I looked down at my hands, the hands that had spent thousands of hours typing the code that built a multimillion-dollar company. Deep inside my chest, beneath the crushing weight of heartbreak and betrayal, a cold, sharp spark began to ignite. No, I said, my voice dropping into a quiet, dangerous tone. I'm not letting them win. Good, Marcus said softly. So what's the plan? I don't know yet, I murmured, staring at the rain beating against the window pane. But I'm going to make them pay for destroying my life. Every single one of them. The tinted window of the sleek black limousine rolled down, revealing a pair of ice blue eyes that saw right through my desperation. The car was parked right outside the small, noisy coffee shop where I had been wiping down sticky tables for 2 long weeks. Working minimum wage shifts was a crushing reality check, but I needed money for food while living on Marcus's couch. A tall woman in a sharp gray suit stepped out of the luxury car and walked inside. Every head in the cafe turned. She carried an air of absolute authority. Julian Vance? She asked, stopping right in front of my counter. Yes, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. Can I get you something? A few minutes of your time, she replied smoothly, pulling out a sleek business card and setting it on the counter. I'm Victoria Thorne. I stared at the black embossed card. Thorne Global Industries. She wasn't just anyone, she was the sole heiress to one of the largest Fortune 500 tech conglomerates in the world. Victoria Thorne, I murmured, looking up in shock. What is someone like you doing in a place like this? Looking for the real brain behind Vance Media, Victoria said, leaning in slightly. We need to talk privately, Julian. My car is outside. I glanced at my manager, who just waved me off with wide eyes. I took off my apron, threw it on the counter, and followed her out into the crisp afternoon air. Inside the limousine, the noise of the city completely melted away. Victoria sat across from me, holding a leather folder. I'll get straight to the point, Victoria said, opening the folder. I've been tracking Vance Media's market valuation for 6 months. My team was preparing a massive buyout offer, until 2 weeks ago. Until Ethan Hayes ousted me, I said bitterly, looking down at my hands. You're wasting your time, Miss Thorne. I don't own a single share anymore. Ethan took it all. Ethan Hayes is an idiot, Victoria said bluntly, her sharp eyes fixing onto mine. And he is currently trying to sell my acquisition team a platform that is already failing. Failing? I asked, caught off guard. What do you mean? The core architecture of your software is crashing, Victoria explained, pulling out a sheet of technical analytics and handing it to me. Since you left, the server response times have dropped by 40%. Ethan doesn't know how to maintain the source code, does he? Because he didn't write a single line of it, I said, a bitter smile touching my lips as I scanned the report. I built the foundation. Ethan only handles marketing and client dinners. Exactly, Victoria said, closing the folder with a sharp snap. Ethan is a fraud who stole your original code. He's running on borrowed time, and within 3 months his lack of technical skill will ruin the platform completely. So why are you here? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. If you know he's a fraud, why come to me? Because I don't waste time on frauds, Julian. I invest in genius, Victoria said, her tone calm and steady. I want to offer you a deal. Thorne Global will fully fund a brand new tech venture under our umbrella. Unlimited financial resources, top-tier legal protection, and a state-of-the-art laboratory. I blinked, unable to process her words. You want to fund me? I want to name you the CEO of our newest software subsidiary, Victoria corrected, holding out her hand. You build an upgraded, next-generation version of your platform, something so advanced it renders Vance Media completely obsolete overnight. And what's the catch? I asked cautiously. Nobody gives away millions without a price. The catch is simple, Victoria replied, her eyes narrowing with cold precision. Ethan Hayes is trying to secure a $50 million Series B round from our rival firm next month. I want you to launch your platform first, crush his valuation, and help me destroy his fake empire before he ruins the integrity of this industry. A surge of adrenaline rushed through my veins, warmer and stronger than anything I had felt in weeks. The image of Ethan laughing on stage and Chloe mocking my broken life flashed in my mind. You want me to take him down? I whispered. I want you to take back what's yours, Julian, Victoria said softly. And make him regret the day he ever crossed you. So, do we have a deal? What about the patents? I asked, my mind racing through the logistics. Ethan locked down my old designs. If I launch something similar, he'll try to sue me for intellectual property theft. Let him try, Victoria smirked, pulling out a fountain pen and a thick contract from her leather bag. Thorne Global's legal department is the most ruthless in the country. My lawyers will tie him up in court until he doesn't have a single dollar left to pay his defense fees. I took the pen from her hand. My fingers didn't shake this time. The hesitation, the heartbreak, and the humiliation of that night at the ballroom finally burned away, replaced by absolute clarity. Where do I sign? I asked. Victoria pointed to the bottom line of the final page. Right here, C.O. Vance. I pressed the pen to the paper and signed my name in clear, bold letters. Welcome aboard, Victoria said, taking the contract back and shaking my hand with a firm grip. Your new office is waiting for you tomorrow morning. Let's go build your future. I looked out the dark window at the passing city lights, feeling the quiet, dangerous transformation taking hold inside me. Ethan and Chloe thought they had buried me. They had no idea they had just handed me an army. Watching Chloe's eyes widen as I stepped out of the executive lift in a custom suit was a high better than any revenge I had dreamed of. 6 intense months had transformed everything. Under my leadership, Thorne NextGen had launched Apex Engine, an advanced platform that rendered Vance Media's stolen code useless. Without my technical expertise to fix their crumbling infrastructure, Ethan's software was plagued with system crashes. Investors were fleeing, money was draining, and desperation had set in. Is the boardroom prepared? Victoria asked, walking alongside me down the glass corridor of Thorne Global headquarters. Everything is set, I replied, adjusting my silk tie. Ethan thinks he's meeting Thorne Global's board for a $40 million emergency bailout. He has no idea who actually runs this division. He brought your ex-girlfriend along for support, Victoria added with a cold smirk. She's been calling our reception desk all morning trying to secure the deal. Let's not keep our guests waiting, I said, pushing open the double doors of the top-floor executive suite. Inside the spacious room, Ethan and Chloe stood near the panoramic window, nervously holding leather presentation folders. Ethan's hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, and his cheap designer suit hung loosely on him. Chloe looked exhausted, her high society polish chipped by 6 months of financial stress. When the heavy doors clicked shut, both of them turned around quickly. Thank you so much for meeting with us, Miss Thorne. Ethan began, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. We are thrilled to present Vance Media's. Ethan froze mid-sentence. His jaw dropped. The leather folder slipped from his hand, hitting the carpet with a dull thud. Chloe gasped, clutching her designer handbag against her chest. Julian? Hello, Ethan. Hello, Chloe, I said smoothly, walking behind the grand mahogany desk and taking my seat in the high-back CO chair. It's been a while. What are you doing here? Ethan stammered, his face turning ghost white. Why are you sitting in that chair? Because you're asking for my money, I said quietly, resting my hands flat on the desk. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Thorne NextGen. Every investment decision in this tech sector goes through me. That's impossible. Chloe burst out, stepping past Ethan with wide, frantic eyes. You were broke. You were working at a coffee shop. I replied, holding her wild gaze. Until Victoria Thorne recognized true talent instead of stolen ideas. Unlike Ethan, I actually know how to build a company. Miss Thorne. Ethan shouted, turning desperately toward Victoria, who stood near the window with folded arms. You can't let this failure make business decisions for your firm. He's unstable. He's just trying to get revenge because his ex left him. Julian built the Apex Engine, Victoria said calmly, her voice sharp as ice. The platform that just erased 80% of your market share in 3 weeks. He isn't a failure, Mr. Hayes. You are. Julian, please, Chloe said, her tone suddenly shifting into a sweet, persuasive purr as she took 2 steps toward my desk. We were together for 5 years. You know, Ethan manipulated me that night. He lied to me about the company. I was confused, Julian. I let out a low, dry laugh. Confused, Chloe? You called me a broke loser in front of 300 people. You kissed him on stage while I stood in the rain. I made a mistake. Chloe pleaded, a tear spilling over her eye as she looked at my tailored suit and executive office. I still care about you. We can fix this. Shut up, Chloe. Ethan snapped, turning on her with venom in his voice. Don't beg him. You shut up. Chloe screamed back, her polished persona completely shattering. Your company is dying. Your code is broken. You promised me a mansion and a brand new life, and now we're bankrupt because you couldn't even keep the servers running. I am the CEO. Ethan yelled, stepping into her space. I made Vance Media famous. You made it a crime scene, I interrupted sharply, bringing my fist down lightly on the desk. The room went dead silent. Ethan and Chloe stopped fighting, turning their panicked eyes back to me. I called this meeting for one reason, I said, pulling a thick stack of blue legal documents out from my drawer and tossing them onto the center of the table. Not to give you $40 million, but to hand-deliver this. Ethan stared at the documents, trembling. What is this? That is a formal notice of legal action from Thorne Global's legal department, I explained, leaning back in my chair. We are filing for severe patent infringement, corporate fraud, and the theft of intellectual property. We hold the original code commits from 5 years ago, Ethan. All verified by independent forensic experts. You can't do this. Ethan choked out, grasping the edge of the table to steady himself. This will trigger an immediate emergency audit. My investors will pull out by tonight. They already are, Victoria chimed in, checking her phone. 3 of your top equity partners just pulled their capital 5 minutes ago. Your board has officially called an emergency vote to strip you of your executive powers. No, please, Ethan whispered, falling back into a guest chair as all the air left his lungs. Julian, please don't do this to me. I'll give you back 40% of the company. You don't own a company anymore, Ethan, I said coldly, looking down at the man who had ruined my life 6 months ago. You own a mountain of debt and a criminal investigation. Julian. Chloe whimpered, reaching her hand out toward me across the desk. Please. Get out of my office, I said quietly, turning my back on both of them to look out over the city skyline. Security is waiting in the hallway. Julian, please, we were family once. Ethan begged, his voice trembling as the legal notices rained down on his desk. I stood right beside Samantha Reed, Thorne Global's top litigator, watching Ethan stare helplessly at the legal papers scattered across his office. His face was pale, his eyes wide with pure panic. We were never family, Ethan, I said coldly, looking down at him. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal 5 years of work while someone is overseas. Mr. Hayes, Samantha stepped forward, placing a thick blue binder onto the glass desk with a sharp click. I am serving you with a formal federal lawsuit. We have established evidence of trade secret theft, falsification of corporate governance records, and systemic fraud. If you do not liquidate your personal holding equity within 48 hours, our next step will be criminal charges with the district attorney. Criminal charges? Ethan stammered, grabbing his hair in desperation. Samantha, listen to me. This is a simple boardroom dispute. Julian left the country. He abandoned his duties. The flight records, server logs, and digital signatures prove otherwise, Samantha replied without a trace of emotion. You forged his approval on 3 separate equity transfers while he was in Tokyo. That is felony fraud. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a flood of private text messages popping up on the screen. Chloe, Julian, please answer me. I made a huge mistake. Ethan forced me to play along that night at the party. He threatened to ruin my family's business if I didn't dump you. Chloe, I still love you, Julian. I never stopped thinking about you. Can we talk privately tonight? Just you and me? I stared at the screen and let out a harsh laugh. What's so funny? Ethan snapped, his jaw trembling. Chloe is texting me, I said, turning the screen around so he could see her desperate messages. She claims you forced her to humiliate me. She says she still loves me. Ethan's face turned from pale to vibrant red. That ungrateful snake. I bought her a Porsche last month. I paid off her mother's country club debt. She knows you're going under, Ethan, I said, typing a swift, final reply to Chloe. Don't ever contact me again. I hit block before looking back up. She's jumping off the sinking ship just like everyone else. She's lying to you. Ethan screamed, rising from his chair so fast it flipped over onto the floor. I gave her everything. Save your energy for the press, Samantha advised coolly, adjusting her glasses. The press release detailing this lawsuit went live 5 minutes ago. Your investors are already reacting. Right on cue, Ethan's desk phone began ringing off the hook. Seconds later, his personal mobile phone buzzed violently, sliding across the mahogany surface. Ethan snatched his mobile phone and pressed it to his ear. Hello? Marcus? Look, the news report is a total misunderstanding. He paused, listening as a furious voice blasted through the speaker so loudly we could hear every word. "You fraud," the investor roared through the phone. "We are pulling our $12 million commitment immediately. Our legal team is filing an injunction against Vance Media by noon. Do not call this number again." The call disconnected. Before Ethan could put the phone down, another call pinged through, followed by 3 emergency email notifications. "That was your lead Series B investor, wasn't it?" I asked quietly. "Julian, please," Ethan choked out, dropping back onto his knees near his overturned chair. "If you push this suit, the board will strip my executive powers by tonight. I'll lose my house. I'll lose everything I've built." "You didn't build any of this," I corrected him, leaning down so I was eye to eye with him. "I built this company with my bare hands. You just slapped your name on the door and thought you were a king. I'll give you back the title." Ethan wept, tears finally streaming down his cheeks. "You can have Vance Media back. Just drop the criminal charges." "It's too late for deals, Ethan," I said, standing up to my full height. "You told me 6 months ago that nice guys finish last. It turns out thieves just end up in prison." "Let's go, Julian," Samantha said smoothly, picking up her briefcase. "We have a press conference to attend." As we walked out of the corner office, I heard Ethan break down into loud, hysterical sobs behind us. The office staff outside were already packing up their desks, whispering in panic as news of the impending bankruptcy spread through the building. 2 hours later, I was sitting with Victoria in the lounge of the Metropolitan Hotel when her tablet dinged with a trending video notification. "You might want to see this," Victoria said, passing the tablet across the table with a sly smile. "It seems your old friends had a public reunion." I looked down at the video playing on the screen. It was filmed inside a high-end restaurant downtown. Chloe and Ethan were standing in the middle of the dining room, surrounded by dozens of shocked patrons, screaming at the top of their lungs. "You ruined me." Ethan was screaming in the video, pointing a shaky finger at Chloe's face. "I spent millions on you and you were texting him behind my back. You lied to me." Chloe shrieked back, throwing her glass of red wine directly into Ethan's face. "You told me you were the genius behind the software. You're nothing but a broke loser who stole from Julian. You ruined my life." The video showed restaurant security rushing in to tackle Ethan as he tried to grab Chloe's handbag, while diners filmed the entire pathetic breakdown on their phones. The caption already had 2 million views. "Vance Media CEO and girlfriend destroy each other after massive fraud exposure." "Satisfied?" Victoria asked gently, taking the tablet back. "Not yet," I replied, taking a sip of my dark coffee as a feeling of profound relief settled in my chest. "The story isn't over until the final gavel drops." As the courtroom doors closed behind Ethan, I finally took a deep breath, realizing the weight of the past was finally gone. The trial had been swift. Facing overwhelming evidence of forged signatures and fraud, Ethan pled guilty to escape maximum sentencing. But tonight was not about his defeat, it was about my rebirth. I stood in the grand foyer of the International Tech Summit Gala, wearing a tailored navy tux. Flashbulbs flared and reporters called out my name from behind velvet ropes. "Julian Vance," a journalist yelled over the noise. "How does it feel to return to the summit as CEO of Thorne NextGen after Vance Media's complete collapse?" "It feels earned," I replied smoothly, looking straight into the camera lens. "Innovation cannot be built on stolen foundations. Tonight we look forward to the future." I moved past the press line into the main hall. Crystal lights hung high above, casting a brilliant glow over hundreds of tech leaders and investors. 6 months ago I was thrown out of a ballroom just like this one. Today people stepped aside to make way for me. "Julian," a quiet, trembling voice whispered from my left. I turned around. Chloe stood near a pillar, completely alone. Her designer dress looked unkempt, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Nobody was speaking to her. The high society crowd she once cherished now treated her like a social outcast. "Chloe," I said, keeping my tone completely neutral. "Please, Julian," she choked out, taking a small step toward me. "I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk for just 1 minute? Nobody will hire me. My old friends won't even answer my calls." "You chose your side 6 months ago, Chloe," I said quietly. "You laughed when Ethan stole my life. You called me a broke failure in front of everyone." "I was stupid," she sobbed, holding her trembling hands together. "He promised me the world. He said you were holding us back. He lied, and you believed him because you only cared about status," I replied, looking down at her without an ounce of anger left in my heart, only pity. You threw away 5 years of real love for a fake empire. Before she could answer, a loud commotion erupted near the main entrance. Screams echoed across the polished marble floors as double doors burst open. "Where is he?" a harsh, ragged voice roared. Ethan staggered into the room. His hair was wild, his eyes bloodshot, and his suit wrinkled beyond recognition. He had skipped his preliminary bail hearing, completely unraveling under the pressure of his impending prison sentence. "Ethan?" Chloe gasped, backing away in terror. "You ruined me, Julian." Ethan screamed, pointing a shaky finger at me as he shoved past a waiter. "You took my money. You took my company. You took my entire life." The entire room fell dead silent. Security guards moved swiftly from the side exits, surrounding him within seconds. "I didn't take anything from you, Ethan," I said, stepping forward calmly as the guards grabbed both of his arms. "You destroyed yourself the moment you chose greed over honor. I made you." Ethan shrieked, kicking wildly as 2 armed guards pinned his hands behind his back. "You were nothing without me. You were just a weak coder." "I was the creator," I corrected him, looking him in the eye as steel handcuffs clicked tightly around his wrists. "You were just the thief." "Get him out of here," a senior officer ordered sharply. As the officers hauled Ethan away toward the waiting police cars outside, he screamed my name until the heavy double doors slammed shut behind him. The sound faded into absolute silence. Chloe covered her face and slipped away through a side exit in total disgrace, completely forgotten by the crowd. "Drama aside, I believe we have a keynote to give," Victoria's calm voice sounded beside me. She walked up, offering a subtle, proud smile. "Lead the way," I said, offering her my arm. We walked up the carpeted stairs to the main stage together. The lights dimmed, and the massive screens behind us illuminated with the logos of Thorne Global and NextGen. Victoria stepped up to the podium, tapping the microphone softly. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," Victoria announced, her commanding voice filling the auditorium. "Tonight, Thorne Global is proud to announce the final completion of our major international tech acquisition. Effective immediately, we are merging our entire software division into a new Fortune 500 entity." The crowd leaned in breathless. "And leading this new global enterprise as our official chief executive officer," Victoria continued, turning to look directly at me with a nod of absolute respect, "is the visionary behind the code himself, Julian Vance." The auditorium exploded into thunderous applause. Investors, executives, and leaders stood up from their tables, clapping wildly. I stepped up to the microphone, looking out over the sea of cheering faces. For months I had dreamed of revenge. I had imagined the moment I would see Ethan and Chloe fall. But standing here now, under the warm glare of the stage lights, I realized something far more important. True victory wasn't about making them suffer. It was about rebuilding myself into someone so strong that their betrayal no longer had any power over me. "Thank you, everyone," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and filled with conviction. "Tonight isn't just about a new company. It's about showing that true innovation, resilience, and integrity will always win in the end. Let's build the future together." The applause deafened the room once more as I shook hands with Victoria. An hour later, after the speeches and press photos were finished, Victoria and I stepped out onto the top terrace balcony overlooking the city skyline. The cool night breeze blew gently across my face, carrying away the last lingering ashes of my past. "So, CEO Vance," Victoria said softly, leaning against the balcony railing alongside me. "What's our next move?" I took a deep breath of the fresh night air, looking out at the endless neon lights stretching across the horizon. "Our next move," I said, a clear, confident smile spreading across my face, "is whatever I want it to be." I walked out of the venue into the bright, open city night alongside Victoria, completely free from the ghosts of my past.